Hi everyone, this is Andrew Primer, Ukrainian American, reporting from Kiev. In today's podcast, this is week 133rd of Russian invasion of Ukraine, and this is the third week of September 2024. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about Ukraine destroyed two largest Russian weapon depots deep inside Russia, which is a huge blow to Putin. And we're going to talk about Putin threats that are not really bothering the West anymore. So, what the dictator is doing now. It was a huge week for Ukraine because we want to stop the aggression of Russian Federation, and the best way to do so is destroy the ammunition. Ukrainian drones attacked overnight a weapon depot filled with missiles around 3 miles inside Russia, or approximately almost 500 kilometers, releasing a massive fireball into the nighttime sky. The latest strike on Russian military targets by Ukrainian forces using their own weapons. Renovated in 2018, the facility in Torapets, inside of Russia, is estimated to have stored tons of military goods, including explosives, artillery shells, and ballistic missiles. The facility in Torapets is estimated to have stored around 30,000 tons of military munitions. The destruction of the ammunition that was stored there will be most likely negatively affect the Northern Operations Group of the Russian Army. An official from Ukraine's Security Service SBU said on Wednesday that military intelligence and special forces carried out the attack, which literally wiped off the face of the earth the ammunition warehouse. The official spoke on the conditions of anonymously because of the sensitivity of the subject. The base housed Iskander tactical missiles, Tochka U missile systems, anti aircraft missiles, artillery ammunition, and glide bombs that are actually currently used to destroy Kharkiv city and Zaporizhia. So, also among the weapons that have plumbed Ukrainian cities and the energy infrastructure, the Iskander missiles, and as I said, Cubs that Russians drop in 40 50 kilometers away from the city on residential buildings. North Korean KN 23 ballistic missiles were also located in the storage facility and has been recently delivered to Russia, confirmed Ukrainian Defense Ministry, who also spoke on the condition of anonymity. He added that the attack involved more than 100 drones. Verified videos on social media actually showed extensive fires and explosions at the ammunition storage facility in Torapets in Russia's Tver region, approximately 250 miles west of Moscow. Satellite images showed extensive fires of they appeared to be a complex of bunkers in the town. NASA NASA Fire Information for a Resource Management System also showed the whole fire affected complex on Wednesday morning. The drone attack took place as Ukrainian officials are lobbying their allies hard to allow them to use Western supplied missiles to strike deep within Russia to destroy precisely these kinds of weapon systems doing so much damage in Ukraine. Ukrainian officials also said that the stocks of one of Russia's signature weapons, the glide bombs, were destroyed in the attack. Russian forces have outfitted Soviet era bombs with wings and guidance systems, allowing them to fly for dozens of miles and hit Ukrainian front lines and urban areas with devastating effect. The Torpeds attack, however, showcases Ukraine's own military innovations and capabilities as it has developed a fleet of drones that can strike deep into Russia. Last week, Kiev forces launched a major drone attack on Moscow and 8 other regions, though the results pale in comparison with a fireball in Tarapets. Russian authorities, as always, play down the attack, and the Tver regional government Telegram channel said that a fire started as a result of drone debris falling while air defense forces were repelling an attack, but it made no mention of the ammunition storage facility damage. So, as always, Russian government is trying to cover the truth from the Russian population. At the same time, the government of the Tver region, where the ammunition depot was located, announced a partial evacuation of the Torapets population of around 11,000 people, while air defense forces continued to repel a massive attack by drones in the sky above the city. Later, the government said that access to Torapets was open again and residents could return. Yeah, because there is no threat anymore. All the depots, all the ammunition was completely destroyed. So there isn't going to be no attacks from the Ukrainian side because there is nothing left to target. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the weapon complex was built in 2018 and it was one of the most advanced and modern ones. The arsenal makes it possible to shelter missile and ammunition stockpiles from external impact and ensure their safety and explosion and fire safety. The full load of each storage facility of the arsenal is up to 240 tons, it reported, citing General Dmitry Bulgakov, the Deputy Defense Minister of Russian Federation. However, a few days later, the second largest drone attack at the Russian 23rd arsenal in the village of Oktyabrski in the same Tver region, nearly 60 storage buildings, a railway depot, and trains carrying ammunition were either destroyed or severely damaged in the drone attack. Ukraine said that on Saturday, just a few days later, after the first massive attack, it had struck two large ammunition depots deep inside Russia overnight. It was the second such attack in less than a week as Kiev seeks to escalate hits on Russian military bases and warehouses to try to disrupt Moscow military logistics and slow its troops' advance on the battlefield. Moscow has not directly acknowledged the strikes on the depots, which is not a huge surprise, but regional authorities said that the drone attack on Tikhoretsk had caused a fire that spread to explosive objects and triggered detonations. Some 1,200 residents were evacuated from the area. The Russian state news agency reported that a drone attack near Tarapes had forced the evacuation of the train station and the suspension of the traffic on the highway. NASA satellites detected multiple fires at the two depots on Saturday. The attack came 4 days after another munition depot near Tarapes was hit by Ukrainian drones, causing a huge explosion with videos showing large fireballs lighting up high in the sky. Images have surfaced online showing the location of the second major military storage facility in the Tver region targeted by Ukrainian defense forces. They pertains to the 23rd Arsenal of the Main Missile and Artillery Directorate of the Russian Defense Ministry in the village of Oktyabrski, which was attacked by drones on the night of September 21st. The facility is also near the city of Tarapets, where the 107th Arsenal of Russian Grau exploded on September 18th. Strikes on weapons arsenals are crucial for Ukraine to weaken Russia's overwhelming fire superiority on the battlefield, military experts said. Every week, Moscow bombards Ukrainian front lines positions and cities with missiles, guided bombs, and artillery shells. Ukrainian soldiers have long been outgunned at the front. Mr. President Zelensky is saying in April that Russia fires 10 shells for every Ukrainian one. So this advantage is huge. The Ukraine armed forces are looking for other ways how to stop the Russian aggression. So Russia keeps threatening the world with the red lines. We know that, but nobody takes them seriously anymore. They know they are bluffing. Since the very beginning of Russia's war against Ukraine, the US led Western coalition has demonstrated an impressive determination to support Kiev. However, every practical step to provide military support to Ukraine was associated with lengthy discussions. Moscow tried to capitalize on the Western concern and reinforce it, but could not disrupt the coalition's formed to supply Kiev with Leopard tanks and F 16 fighter jets. The issue is currently being discussed in London, Brussels, and Washington on giving Ukraine the right to launch long range strikes on Russian territory with the help of Western weapons systems, which is likely to increase further the pressure on the Kremlin and its destructive war. Russian dictator Putin is trying to block this discussion by launching a new wave of escalating threats to prevent Western capitals from giving Kiev such permission. Putin's balancing act on the brink of war has already exhausted itself, and he's fed up with its empty rhetoric and lack of practical actions. Seeking to be more persuasive, he raised the stakes, saying that a sharp change in the very nature, the very essence of the conflict, should reinvigorate Russian deterrence. Russian mainstream media reported on the likely intentional backlash from Putin's statement that NATO countries are ready to go directly to war with Russia and his promises to make appropriate decisions. Less attention has been paid to the fact that this outburst came immediately after Putin's meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. On closer inspection, despite all the pomps, there is not much new in Putin's posturing. However, there are nuances in his last words that deserve close attention. For the first time, Putin didn't single out the United States but united it with European countries. However, the Kremlin perfectly understands that the authority to decide questions rests primarily with Washington. Putin's statement in nuclear blackmail didn't really bother US President Joe Biden, but to brush it off by saying, I don't think much of Putin is the right but insufficient response. Few people doubt that Ukraine will receive permission to launch long range strikes. The real issue is timing and targeting, as only the United States can provide highly accurate real time data, even if Putin talks about NATO satellites. The Kremlin may well assume the decision has already been made. Thus, the new emphasis on nuclear risk is intended to raise the issue in the domestic debate in the US ahead of the November presidential elections. The surge in public concern over a nuclear disaster fits well with former US President Donald Trump's debut's promise to convince Russia and Ukraine to end the war as soon as possible. Another goal of Putin's démarche is to deepen the apparent differences between the US and its European allies, which has always been a priority of his foreign policy. The new British government has taken the initiative to grant Ukraine the right to use Storm Shadow missiles to attack Russian territory. The punishment for this hostile course was Moscow's discrediting of six British diplomats as spies and the publication of their photographs. France which was condemned a few months ago for opening the debate on sending NATO troops to Ukraine, has remained silent on the use of its long range Scalp EG missiles. Perhaps the Kremlin is betting on the cautious course of Michael Berner's fragile government. Moscow pays special attention to Germany, where defeats in the regional elections in Saxony and Thuringia have taken the government coalition. Chancellor, Chancellor Olaf Scholz has signaled his intention to propose a peace plan for Ukraine, while the issue with Taurus long range missiles has disappeared from his agenda, surprising Ukrainians. Putin's attempts to say that strikes by Western missiles are a completely different story. The strike by Ukrainian missiles and drones betray the falsity of his threats. The US supplied Army tactical missiles, or we call it ATACMS, can carry a powerful warheads of up to 300 kilometers or 186 miles. However, Ukrainian drones are already reaching the Olenia air base on the Russian peninsula Kola, and their strikes have left an oil depot in the Rostov region burning for 2 weeks. The US supplied HIMARS artillery missile system effectively destroyed bridges and pontoons crossing across the same river in the Kursk region during the Ukrainian offensive of the Kursk region 2 months ago. In addition, the first squadron of F 16 fighter participated in the interception of Russian missile strikes on Ukrainian cities. Moscow doesn't consider any of these improvements to Ukrainian potential to be a violation of its red lines. However, the prospect of Storm Shadow's missile strikes prompted Sergei Karaganov, Russia's leading proponent of nuclear escalation, to propose striking Berlin. Well aimed medium range missile strikes can do some good by denying the Russian Air Force the ability to use its forward bases. However, Ukraine's offensive in the Kursk region had a greater impact on the trajectory of the long war. Putin played down the significance of this fiasco and developed a too prolonged strategy, intensifying attacks on Pokrovsk in the Donbas region and slowly ousting the Ukrainian brigades that had overstretched themselves on Russian territory from the land they seized. During the 6 weeks of the Ukrainian operation, this strategy failed in both directions. The defense around Pokrovsk is still holding, and Russian counterattacks in the Kursk region are met with concentrated fire and cunning maneuvers. Putin's fixation on the idea of holding the strategic initiative prevents him from making the necessary changes to his imperfect strategy and dooms the Russian forces to degradation due to heavy losses. Any failure on the shifting battlefield could trigger another shift in Putin's mood from self confidence to exasperation, leading to a new flare up of nuclear confrontation. American and European politicians have studied this pattern of behavior and have gained experience in developing countermeasures that do not ignore blackmail and do not succumb to it. Symbolic statements that give Ukraine the right to use Western weapons at its own discretion are useless. Instead, it's necessary to explain practical work with the Ukrainian command on precise targeting to minimize casualties among the civilian population. Geopolitical caution reminds us that Putin's declarations are bluffs until they stop being so, though the same is true of the strength of his grip on power. Thank you for listening. If you like my podcast, please share with your friends.